us on Geek Blood, the show you can't ignore. Wayne and Kevin diving deep into all things galore. Comic book, movie, sci-fi, and action thrill. Reviewing new TV shows, we keep it real, real. Reminiscing the attitude era, wrestling at its peak. Nostalgia from the 80s and 90s, memories we seek. Pineapples for our rings, a unique touch. Geek culture in our blood, we love it so much. Geek Blood forever, we love it so much. Geek Blood, where we talk about it all, from superheroes to wrestlers. We stand tall, Ray and Kevin, the dynamic duo in sight. Geek Blood, shining bright, shining bright. Did you hear about Pluto? That's messed up, right? Geek Blood, taking you on a nostalgia flight. From movies to TV, we cover it all. Join us and every week we'll have a ball. Shuffle.
Hey, welcome everyone.
What's going on, people? What's going on?
Another exciting week.
Yes, Raymond, with the news that we got this week, I assume we may be talking about it in the news. I was just watching Green Lantern before we went on.
Yep. We're going to talk
that
about
movie is a giant piece of shit.
It is, yes.
Oh, I will say one thing. Ryan Reynolds was actually very good Hal Jordan. It's just...
I thought he was too. And I thought Sinestro, Mark Strong as Sinestro was really good too.
And
I wish we could have seen more.
Movie where had the MCU not been, it's pretty much in full swing by the time this movie came out. If this movie was done pre-MCU, it would have gone over a lot better, I think.
It would have been huge.
Yeah. And of course there's Martin Campbell, who is my favorite Bond director. He did GoldenEye and Casino Royale. He rebooted the Bond twice. And for some reason, I mean, it must have been the script. He just couldn't get that Green Lantern film off the ground. But yeah, let's get into this week.
There were parts of that movie that I really did like.
Yes.
And it wasn't Ryan Reynolds was the problem at all. It was just, like you said, it was the atmosphere of the movie making at the time. But got a lot to talk about this week. Didn't watch a lot compared to what I've been watching the last couple of months. However, the big thing this week, everybody knows, is the Mr. McMahon documentary, which we're going to get into in a few minutes. 6 parts. It was crazy. 6 hours. Watched it all in one stay the day it came out. You watched it yesterday. We'll talk all about that. What we liked, what we didn't like about it. I'm pretty sure you probably have the same idea that I will about it. But Only Murders in the Building, Episode 5. Again, I'm not going to get into much about it. It's getting good. I mean, the show is a mystery every week. You're trying to find out who the murderer is. Like my mother said, I was talking to her. She's like, how many people die in this fucking building? This is the 4th season where there's actually people dying. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really happen. It's a show created by Steve Martin. But Rings of Power, Episode 7. Another show I don't want to get too much into, but you already know like what the show is doing. They're building the Rings of Power to get to the point where Sauron is going to build the One Ring. Eragon is a city of elves. That is where the forge for the rings are. Celebrimbor is the elf who is making the rings for Sauron. He's being controlled. And in this episode, Celebrimbor has been kind of under a haze for the longest time, under Sauron's gaze. Sauron is right over his shoulder. He's disguised as an elf this season. And he's not showing him the world around him. He's kind of locked him in this tower to build the rings. And he doesn't realize that Eragon, whatever it is being destroyed by orcs on the outside. And finally in this episode, he kind of snaps out of it. And he realizes that the world around him is not what it seems, as Sauron's been giving them this veil around his eyes to not see what's going on in real life. So he kind of awakens. Sauron finds him this way and locks him up in the tower to finish the 9 rings, which this episode he does do for men, the 9 rings of men. And he ends up getting the rings. I don't want to get too many spoilers, but you already know like they're gonna be made. They're finished. And something happens to the rings, and try to get them out of Sauron's reach and Sauron's grasp. Because once the men have them, the elves already have theirs, the dwarves already have them, all the clans of the dwarves, they have their 6 or 7 rings. He can control them all once he has the one ring, and he's kind of getting to that point. Celebrimbor is not going to be making that one ring. We know that from the story that Sauron makes it in Mount Doom. That's why they have to go to Mount Doom to melt the ring in the first place. But overall, I really like this episode. Is probably one of the better ones this week. I know a lot of people complain about it, especially if you're into the books more so. A lot of people were complaining about the movies too that came out. They're not like the books. A lot of stuff was missing from the books. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies. I that was my, before I even got into the books, that was what I learned to love about Lord of the Rings. So I love that first and foremost. So I have no problem. Even this show, I don't really have a problem with it connecting to the Lord of the Rings the way people who are so super fans, like Star Wars super fans, we talked about it last week. Lord of the Rings super fans are just as bad with the books too. If they don't hit that right note, they're gonna go crazy about it. But overall,
Twitter's
I did like this. I did
over the show in that regard.
is. And I did love this episode. But the last episode airs next week, so I would suggest probably, if you want, binge it this weekend or this week if you have time. And then by the time the finale comes out on Thursday, you'll be able to watch along if you want to. But it's really good. It's on Amazon Prime. If you don't know, it's really good. Episode 3 of Agatha All Along. I love this show. A lot better than I thought it would be. Even this episode was really good. They're on the Witch's Road, and they said the thing that everybody from WandaVision on to all the TV shows that have been on Disney Plus for the Marvel Universe. They actually said Mephisto, the name. So we know he's part of the Marvel Universe officially. We know that she has a history with Mephisto. We don't know much about it. The whole mystery of this show is they're all trying to get to the end of the road to get their powers back. Pretty much all of them don't have their powers. And Agatha wants her powers back just because she lost it because of Wanda. So she's trying to get to the end of the road. And the kid that is following them, we're not sure who he is. His name is Teen in the show. Teen. Speculation, of course, is Wiccan. However, what's confirmed, spoiler alert if you don't want to know, sorry, but we don't really care. Agatha All Along, the pop figure, coming out after the show airs, was leaked online. Not only do we get the actual character name of the person who the kid is playing by Joe Locke, Teen, but we also get the character of Aubrey Plaza, who she is playing. We're not sure who that was either. It's either a witch or a demon or something. Even bigger than that, a celestial being. We're going to get into that in a minute here, but spoiler alert for the next 30 seconds to a minute. This is the box art that showed up online this week, the Agatha All Along pop art. Obviously, the bottom one is Wiccan. We already knew that. That is the son in the comic books of Wanda and Vision. And also homosexual character, dates Hulkling, and is in the Young Avengers. So we already knew this show was going to be setting up Young Avengers somehow. But the right corner is Death. Thanos in the MCU hasn't really been obsessed with Death like he is in the comics. The reason why he snaps in the comic books is because of his infatuation with Death. He's trying to... Death is a cosmic being in the comic books. He's trying to get her love, her heart, the heart of Death. Very, very somber, very poetic. But Aubrey Plaza is playing Death in the MCU. We weren't sure who she was playing. That's a huge character. The sister or cousin or relative of Infinity or one of those cosmic beings. I can't remember who it was. But now we know who she is. Kind of put the speculation of what's going to happen in the rest of the season. But yeah, it's a good show. I really have liked it. I think they're probably every week they're going to be going down the road further and further, going down into the horror part of it. A lot of practical effects too. Like I knew that going into it too. There's going to be a lot more practical than the CGI, which has been pretty cool.
Before we move on, I did watch the first 2 episodes of Agatha.
Okay,
and it's exactly what I thought it would be. Not really made for our demographic. I mean, you love it. You're into Marvel way more, but it's basically for the crowd that likes Witch, that old movie with the three witches there that you love. It's for like that crowd, I feel like. Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's very Hocus Pocusy. It's very well made. It's good. I'll probably end up catching it when it's all out.
Okay.
Maybe another week when I have more time, but it's okay. It's
Good.
fine. Like, it's very well made. Like,
very well made.
Way better than a lot of the other Marvel stuff I've seen, story-wise goes. It's better than the Captain America show. It's better than a lot of the stuff I've seen. Secret Invasion? That was also another one.
That was god-awful.
Or Secret Wars, or whatever it was. Yeah, that was not good. But yeah, it's way better as far as being a quality show than those. But yeah, it's cool. It's got that Halloween feel to it, so I like that.
Yep, I did too. That's what I like about it the most. I did not catch up on Twilight of the Gods. I don't know if you finished it or not.
I finished it.
I have.
It's good.
You did?
It's fine.
It's good.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it. I did like what I saw though. It's on my list of things to finish. But I had so much to watch this week.
Yeah.
Football week, the last week of the season, and we watched a couple good ones this week. We're going to talk about The Last Boy Scout first. Movie I never saw. Not really a football movie. Football adjacent. Starring Bruce Willis, Damon Wayans, right fresh out of In Living Color. Halle Berry, a young Halle Berry. Eddie Griffin had a cameo. A lot of character actors in this that you've seen in other things. We talk about that all the time. The art of the character actor. But overall, great movie. This came out in the early 90s. And one of those action movies I just can't believe this just passed me up. Especially, like, you love Bruce Willis. I'm surprised. Yep. It was right in the wheelhouse of Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2.
Literally Bruce Willis.
Timeline.
Yeah, it's classic Bruce Willis. He's an alcoholic cop with smoking problem.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is.
Is this the movie where he wakes up and he thinks he fucked a chipmunk or something in the beginning?
No.
Okay,
I don't
it's been a while since I've...
Maybe this is the one where he's in his car and there's kids that wake him up while he's sleeping in his car.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
And he's like talking about how he thinks he might have fucked a squirrel or something. I don't know, something weird.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, it's a good movie, though, and I'm glad I watched it. But the big one this week was your recommendation for Friday Night Lights.
Yep.
Overall, the movie was good, but I have a feeling that you probably loved the TV show more than the movie.
Yes.
The movie stars Billy Bob Thornton, based on a true story, by the way. Tim McGraw, which we talked about off pod, but he's in every football movie around this time. He was in this, and he was in The Blind Side. Amber Heard, she had a little quick cameo in this. Jay Hernandez, who played El Diablo in Suicide Squad, the first one. Lee Thompson Young was in Nickelodeon show or Disney show, The Famous Jet Jackson.
Good young cast, yeah.
Did have a good young cast. It came out in 2004, right after we were out of high school. True story, based out of 1988. This came out in 2004, so about 16 years later. The camera style was a lot like a documentary style. I noticed that when I first started watching it, how it was almost like a steady cam, like a hand cam. Now, I want to get into this before. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch the series ever. I know you want me to. But what is the real life versus the movie versus the TV show? Like, what are the what's going on here?
As far as the book was written long time ago, and that's obviously what they based the movie off of and the show. The big difference, I believe, from real life to the movie is when they, spoiler alert, they lose the last game.
Yes.
In real life, that was the semifinals, not the finals.
Okay.
And the team that they lost to in the semifinals in real life, and obviously the finals in the movie, they ended up getting stripped of that championship because they had a bunch of infractions like 2 years later. So a team that isn't even talked about in the movie is the ones that technically are like state champions of that year. The ones that actually face them in the finals. That's the biggest difference, I believe, from the book to the movie. Now, the show covers 5 seasons, so 5 years worth of football. So they go through literally every single football movie trope you could think of. Okay. In this movie, it's tough, and you hear the radio guy slamming Sammy Mead. Get ready for Friday night. He's in the show, and he's in the show a lot. I believe he's only in the movie for that one scene in the beginning. And you only hear his voice. You don't actually see him. A lot of similarities are the Booty character. They have a running back who's brash, very similar to Booby. Talks in the third person, named Smash Williams on the TV show. He also, at one point, does get a knee injury. But the big deal is, like, in this, in real life, also, Boobie got injured before the season started, and this they made it week 1. In the show, it's this whole thing is like Coach Taylor. It's a different name entirely for the coach. They're not the Permian Panthers. They're the Dillon Panthers. He comes in because he's been grooming this kid to basically be like the next like Peyton Manning, basically. And he breaks his neck in the very first episode of the first of the show. And so a backup quarterback gets thrown into the situation, and you go from there. But the show starts off pretty much same as the movie, where they go from the cuts of like the actors like talking like to the media to like in-game practice and seeing what things are really like. They do that frequently in the show. That's how the movie starts off. Both times, the show and the movie both have like just very well-mannered quarterbacks. Like even Jason, like who's the quarterback that gets injured, is very well-mannered. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. His backup, Saracen, who comes in, same thing. And same thing with Mike we see in this movie. Brad Leland is in both. He is the head of the boosters in both the movie and the show. He has a very, very more prominent role in the show, as he's basically like the right-hand man to Coach Taylor. And also Connie Britton plays the wife of the coach in this. She's also Tammy Taylor, the wife of the head coach in the show. They show all the pressure from the town, which is also shown in the show pretty much every time they have a football game. The show does end up going further away from football. Like a lot of times, like you only get like 5 minutes of football action in the hour-long show, and it's not even every week. So yeah, you got the pressure from the town. You got the Rally Girls are another big prominent thing in the show. In the show, they basically make it like every football player has this Rally Girl who brings them like candy, food, whatever, and they use it as like a thing to like get the girlfriends mad at the players, whatever. Typical high school drama stuff that the show has, which is why I love the show so much, because I love high school drama bullshit. In the movie and the show, the boosters try to give input to the coach on what plays he should run. This game day music in the very first game of the movie is the intro music on the show, which was just for the movie. They found some band, and they were like, "Can we use your music to hold the place until we find out what we can really use?" And then they actually liked the music, so they just paid that band as opposed to like getting other bands to cover that stuff. The whole player can't find his helmet thing we saw in the movie. See that in the show. Like I said, they use a lot of the same tropes. Like I said, the first game, best player goes down. Racial tension is a big part of the show as well. In one of the episodes in the show, one of the coaches says that their running back, Smash Williams, who used to be a quarterback when he was in junior high school, couldn't be a quarterback now because he's just not built to be smart enough, quote unquote. So that becomes a big racial thing in the show. Right. But yeah, the big thing too I picked up from this, because this is the first time I watched the movie since I've seen the show, is he has the big coach head talk at the halftime of the state championship game, and in it he uses terms like clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Like just throughout the speech, he drops those terms in, and that is the motto, that is the creed of the coach on the TV show, is clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Like before every game, the entire team recites that, and it's like on the wall and shit like that. And also the last thing, because I took these notes as I was going through the movie, the lead ref in the championship game that ultimately screws over the Permian Panthers is actually a real high school ref and coach who was basically part of the show as like, he doesn't have many lines because he's not like a real actor. He was just brought in as like to make sure everything was right as far as like football, high school football is concerned, as far as the way it's played and stuff like that. And he's kind of Coach Taylor's right-hand man on the show. He doesn't really get involved much. He's just kind of there, but I thought it was funny. It was a nice little thing to see him as like the lead ref in the movie. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. Like I said, I haven't seen it since 2004, 2005, whenever I saw it, probably on DVD. And there were way more similarities going into it than I thought there would be. But yeah, I did really enjoy the movie.
Nice. Yeah, I did too. And that's it for football. We're going to get into basketball movies in November, correct?
Yep.
We have never done that, so we're going to come up with a list to do that. I know Hoosiers is one of them. There's something else I had.
You got Game and Hoosiers are the two that I want to watch the most.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
so,
we'll do that in November. and then we'll do hockey sometime January, February, and we'll do baseball when baseball season starts. So, because we don't really have too many football. We've done this for 2 years, and we don't really have too many more football movies that I can think of. I kind of looked through the list of the best that there are. We kind of did them all. So, good watch, and we'll continue with other sports going forward. Something that's not good. Coming out of the high of the first Crow movie last week, and talk about Brendan Lee and how awesome that movie was, and then like I mentioned last week, we're going out to a bumpy hill, not even a road, hill down.
Yep.
And we get into 1996 Crow, City of Angels, a movie that the studio wanted to make because of the success, of course, of the first one. Produced by Miramax this time. Original was going to be a TV series. Miramax decided to make it a movie. Producers as well as James O'Barr were against the idea and wanted another film. O'Barr's original script treatment was called Crow the Bride.
Yes.
Where a woman was murdered on her wedding day and would take the Crow mantle and seek revenge.
Right. Which is a true story that O'Barr heard about, which is similar to the first Crow with the rings in the pawn shop. He got that idea from a real true life story.
Miramax originally rejected the idea. No one is going to see an action movie with a female lead. Of course, that was the old studio. Up until probably 5 or 6 years ago, that was the old studio thing. That woman could not make a blockbuster movie.
O'Barr also wrote the comic. He just never released it based on his own treatment. So hopefully one day he releases that.
And also, at this time, Miramax, run by the Weinsteins, and you know everything with Weinstein.
Oh yeah.
Misogynistic. All Bob, not Bob. The other guy, Harvey. Comic book movie veteran David S. Goyer wrote this, he's done
insane.
He's done the Blade trilogy, but he's also done the Dark Knight trilogy, Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice, Batman vs Superman, and Terminator: Dark Fate, which is one of the better Terminator movies in the futuristic ones. He did Jumper, and he did the Sandman TV show, so he's got this huge fucking pedigree of comic books. But he wrote the next draft after Goyer wrote his. His pitch took place in the Victorian era, the original draft, and I thought this sounded cool. Took place in the Victorian era England and featured a rebirthed Jack the Ripper as the antagonist. It was originally approved by Miramax, and then promptly scrapped in favor of a movie led by a guy that looks like Brendan Lee, because they were trying to go through the success of the first movie. Understandably, that was a Weinstein thing that they wanted to do. He ended up staying on as the writer and wrote the final script treatment that we ended up seeing in the film. Directed by Tim Pope, mostly known for directing music videos, I think for The Cure in the 80s.
Yep.
It stars Thomas Jane is in this.
Yes.
Iggy Pop is in this. And it stars a brand new up-and-comer named Vincent Perez,
I believe,
who is named Ash Corvin in this
Yes,
movie.
I believe Vincent Perez was up and coming like in Europe. He was a big Europe, like people in Europe liked him.
Yeah.
And this was like his first movie in the United States.
John Bon Jovi was initially offered the role. He turned it down. He was, of course, a rock star in the 80s, late 80s. And this is also a role, one of the final roles for Toy Trang, who was the original Yellow Rangers in Power Rangers, who notoriously left the show because she wasn't getting paid enough. So this is where she ended up going. Wow. Sarah returns. Sarah's the young kid in the first movie, and now she's all grown up, older now, living in Los Angeles, and she works at a tattoo parlor.
Yep.
Yeah, the whole movie's set in Los Angeles, City of Angels, of course. Movie's not good. Not good at all. And I know it's just going to get worse from here, so we're just going to get into it now. But the aftermath of what happened with this movie, Tim Pope had the movie taken away from him by the Weinsteins in middle of post-production. To help fit the film to feel more like the first one, they took the film away from him in post-production and did all the post-production. Yep. He has since distanced himself from the film, even refusing to do commentary on the studio-produced director's cut, which wasn't a director's cut, it was the Weinstein's cut, for a DVD release, and he had actually no part in it. He had such a bad experience, he didn't return to directing an actual film until about 2 years ago. I believe he's doing a film now. It's coming out next year, 2025. But yeah, this guy got out of filmmaking the minute he got right in. He's like, fuck that. Budget was $13 million, made $25 million, so it did do pretty good as far as that's concerned. It did make a video game on PC and PS1 and Sega Saturn, which I never played.
Spoiler alert, not very good.
Kind of figured. But the movie is not really good, so I'm not surprised. And I'm pissed that I had to watch this movie, but it's the road to the Crow.
Get ready to get madder. Get ready to get even more pissed off. At least Kirsten Dunst is in the next one.
Yeah, but who else is in that movie? There's somebody else.
No one.
Big actor too. No one. Okay.
Edward Furlong's in the one afterwards. Maybe there's something.
The fourth one. The fourth one is the one I'm thinking of that had a weird, strange cast. Well, they all have strange cast, but the fourth one is the weirdest one. Edward Furlong is the Crow. We'll get into that in a couple weeks. But out today, I've not watched it because just not have time. Wolves on Apple TV. Gonna try to watch that for next week. And Megalopolis came out today in the theater. Probably gonna see that streaming in a couple weeks too because it's estimated to make about $15 million this weekend on a $150 million budget.
It'll be out on streaming Tuesday. It's fine.
It'll be out Tuesday. I did end up seeing Beetlejuice, a movie that I know you don't like Tim Burton. If you liked the first Beetlejuice movie, you're going to love this movie. I liked it. I think it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It connected the gaps a lot more than I thought it would. You actually see a history of who Beetlejuice was before he was Beetlejuice. He was in France in the 16s, 1500s. I don't remember when it was, but you see him before he dies and see how he dies. And I liked what's her name who played the daughter, Wednesday. Yeah, I thought she was great in this. She's perfect for it, of course. She's
obviously
Wednesday Addams.
She's perfect for Tim Burton movies. She's perfect for Tim Burton.
I like the setting. I like what happened to most of the characters in the movie. I liked Beetlejuice. He's not overplayed. Like, in the first movie, I think he was in 16 minutes of the full footage of that movie. It's about the same for this, too. And I like all the characters surrounding him. Willem Dafoe plays kind of a detective / old movie star who died and who lives in the underworld, who still wants to be a movie star, but he's a detective for the underworld. I thought he was pretty cool. I just thought the movie was really, really good. Again, another thing with practical effects. Tim Burton's big on that too. Not a lot of CG, a lot of practical stuff. I appreciated that. Overall, probably a 3.5 out of 5. If you love Beetlejuice, you're probably gonna like this. I think Beetlejuice 1 is probably a 4 out of 5. This is probably a 3.5 out of 5. Just because of the nostalgia of the first one is just so great. But Catherine O'Hara returns. She has a great run in this. Of course, Winona Ryder returns. She has a pretty good run. Thoreau, I can't remember his name, but he hasn't been in a lot of movies. He's kind of stars in that too. But overall, good movie. If you want to see it when it comes out on streaming, probably in a month or so, go ahead and watch that. But the main event this week, the big thing, is of course the Mr. McMahon documentary. On Wednesday, it came out on Netflix, 6 parts. I'm going to get into it right now. I had a problem with this documentary. I'm sure you had a problem with too. They went fucking easy on Vince McMahon. They number one, we knew all of this stuff. There was no new revelations. There are a couple of things. No new revelations. Everybody kind of went soft on it.
If you've ever watched any documentary about WWE or WrestleMania, you've seen most of this stuff already talked about.
We knew everything. Yeah.
So yeah,
we knew pretty much everything. We listened to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, so we know that. But the amount of stars that they had doing interviews with this is unprecedented because not only do you have the WWE, the people who are so close to the company, but you also have the people that are kind of offset, like the ones that don't like WWE. They interviewed them too. So you had a conglomerate of what you would get on Dark Side of the Ring and the WWE produced shows.
Tuna Meltzer was there.
Meltzer was a big part of this.
Yeah.
Tony Atlas was a huge part of the first few episodes of this. There's Tony Atlas for you. I just wanted to get a picture of him so you know who he is. He's from Maine. Yep. But he had a lot of great one-liners. We're going to get into a lot of it. But first things first, before this aired on Monday, Vince McMahon put out a statement slamming the next Netflix documentary, saying that it was deceptive. I don't think it was at all until you get to the 6th episode, and I can understand, because they did tackle the whole 6th episode is pretty much what happened last year with Vince being kicked out of the TKO group that ended up coming out of this. But and then the news came out right before this aired. I think it was like Tuesday that he attempted to buy back the Netflix documentary. So he already had all this hype coming up until Wednesday. That yeah, if he's this pissed off about it, maybe there's some really good revelations. But however, there weren't really big groundbreaking revelations. The stuff that we already knew. We knew Vince was the stickler in a lot of this stuff, especially when it comes to the CTE stuff, the Benoit stuff, which is that was kind of taken over the media and the social media this week. But we'll get into everything episode by episode. Episode 1 is titled Junior, all about his rise. Vince McMahon Sr. talks a lot about him and his takeover of the territories once he takes over from his father. Finding Hulk Hogan, making him a superstar, bringing pulp culture and infusing it into the wrestling with like the MTV Rock and Wrestling, Cyndi Lauper, Mr. T at WrestleMania 1, so on and so forth. Talks all about making WrestleMania 1. Talks about the closed circuit television, which I didn't really understand until I watched this. So I'm glad they talked about it, where it was a big screen in the middle of an arena. Yep. Where was the first WrestleMania? Was it Madison Square Garden?
Yep, it was at Madison Square Garden. So, like, if you went to the Boston Garden, you could pay whatever $20 to go to the Boston Garden and watch it.
That was gonna be my question. They did have that at Boston Garden, and I was wondering if they did.
I think by WrestleMania 2, you go to a movie theater and watch it if they were hosting that.
That would make sense. That would make more sense. Because I was thinking, wow. And they actually showed a picture of the screen in the middle of the arena. It would look like a movie theater in the middle of a stadium. Talks all about the John Stossel and Richard Belzer attacks when they were actually being attacked by actual wrestlers. John Stossel was I can't remember the wrestler who attacked him, but Richard Belzer was attacked by Hulk Hogan and choked out live on television. And Tony Atlas in this episode with his sleeveless dress shirt, and tie. He just had a lot of great one-liners. I think the next one is the one I want to talk about the most in episode 2, called Heat. Talks about all the heat that Vince McMahon was getting during the early 90s, especially with the steroid trial. Talks about the beginning of Saturday night's main event. Talks about Andre the Giant in WrestleMania 3. The great thing about this documentary is if you don't know anything about wrestling, it does a fantastic job doing a whole entire history of everything and how WWE became what it was. It was more a WWE documentary at points than it was a Vince McMahon documentary. Talks about Hulk Hogan becoming a pop culture, cartoon, national superstar rather than just a wrestling superstar. Talks about Vince McMahon writing No Holds Barred with Zeus. Talks about the Ultimate Warrior, Sergeant Slaughter, of course the steroid and sexual allegations starting back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Tony Atlas tells a story about Pat Patterson that's gone viral, about him grabbing his dick in the locker room. And it's a funny story. I know it's problematic for a lot of people, however, just the way Tony Atlas talks about shit, he just doesn't give a fuck.
Just the way he speaks in general is just he's fucking hilarious to listen to. His shoot interview was hilarious when they showed him 2 Girls, 1 Cup, and his reaction to that video is probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Tony Atlas for you. It also talks about Hogan jumping ship to a brand new company coming out with the competition of WCW. Led by Eric Bischoff, jumps ship over there to go against Vince. Also talks about him going into the steroid trials, which is all about the next episode, episode 3, titled Screwjob. Now, if you know wrestling, you know Screwjob is a big term because of what happens in 1997, and this episode does get into that, but it talks about the first Screwjob that Vince McMahon did in the 80s with Wendy Richter, which I knew a little bit about, got into it in the beginning of this episode, where she did not want to drop the women's title. Women's title wasn't huge at that time, in late 80s, so he ended up screwing her out of that title. That was the first screw job that he did. He talked about that a little bit in the documentary. And then it also talks about the steroid trial and the threat of him actually going to jail And he actually beat that trial because Hulk Hogan would not lie at the stand. I don't remember the exact thing of what happened, but Hulk Hogan was given by the government a chance of immunity if he went in and testified. And I think they thought he was going to testify against McMahon, but he ended up actually telling the truth and saying, "Yeah, McMahon didn't do any of this shit."
Right.
Well, it was already there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steroids are already there. It's been there for years. So he got off in the steroid trial, and then everyone starts jumping ship in WCW. WCW is becoming huge at the time down south, and all the big wrestlers, Hogan, then it goes Macho Man, and then of course talks about the curtain call with the Click and Nash and Hall moving over to WCW. It also talks about the new generation led by Bret Hart. After Hogan leaves, who are they going to be the lead of the company? Bret Hart was chosen. Of course, Undertaker is there too. Shawn Michaels, up and coming, becomes the star as well. It's kind of the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels era. Yep. But the episode ends with two huge moments in wrestling. Of course, Hall and Nash jumping to WCW, creating the NWO, with Hogan, of course, turning heel for the first time. They did not want that in WWF, but WCW knew that that's where the character needed to go, rightfully so. While also talking about the Montreal Screwjob in the last 12 minutes, and Bret Hart does a lot of interviews about that, a lot of talking about that in this. Talks about the punch, which always been talked. The narrative has always been that Vince McMahon went into the locker room because he knew that he was going to be punched. He went in there and took it like a man. And Bret was like, "No, he didn't. I punched him in the fucking face. I gave him an uppercut. Just landed perfectly, and he landed like a starfish," was the exact quote. Episode 3 was great. And then we get into episode 4, was all...
I do like, they have that shot of Shamrock and Rick Rude. And I guess Shamrock has talked about this recently, where he and Rick Rude and The Undertaker, I believe, was a third person, because they knew... that's when Bret left after punching out Vince, and they knew that he could technically be charged with assault. And they were basically like, nobody was going to arrest Bret that night. He was like, not a single cop was going to get by the three of us. He's like, Vince earned that, and because of that, that's why Rick Rude went to WCW. That's why Shamrock left the business within 2 years, because of the bullshit that happened that night.
Yeah. Then we get into episode 4, which is my wheelhouse, where I started watching... where the United States, the whole entire country was watching, was the Attitude Era. Episode 4, titled Attitude, talks about the internet fan generation, which we're a part of. The Attitude Era, of course, Degeneration X, the up-and-coming Stone Cold Steve Austin, who just took off. Talks about WrestleMania 14 and bringing in Mike Tyson as a person to bring in the eyes of the company. And the actual Mr. McMahon character being born out of that as the villain, as the boss who's going to be battling against the Stone Cold Steve Austin character, because he's the everyman, the working man's champion. And of course talks about The Rock, but the end of the episode talks about the death of Owen Hart, which I don't think Vince talks about at all, has ever talked about on film. Because of the lawsuits and everything going on, but he actually talked about it in this. He talked about the Owen Hart death. Bret talked about it too. They didn't get his wife on there because she doesn't want anything to do with Vince and WWE. She's all AEW now, Owen's wife. But talks about that. Showed some pictures on there of him in the stretcher, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Have you seen those pictures?
I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I may have
years ago. But yeah.
But of course, the actual video has never been released. And if this had happened now, we would be seeing videos on our phones, but that wasn't around in 98, so 99. But yeah, it talks all about Owen's death, which we know all about. We've talked about it on here before. But episode 5 talks about family business, bringing in Shane, bringing in Stephanie, bringing in Linda as part of the storyline. Talks about the Sable lawsuit, and then ended up winning that lawsuit, coming back to the company a couple years later, like 2001. Talks about the WCW buyout, buying it for $2.5 million, which we've talked about on this. Talks about the XFL failure. Talks about the Bob Costas interview blow up, where he blows up at Bob Costas. That went viral. And talks about the Ruthless Aggression John Cena era that ended up happening in the late 2000s. And then He had an opportunity to buy and purchase the UFC back then, led by Shane McMahon. He was a part of that. He wanted to own the UFC. He basically wanted to be a success. He wanted to be success like his father. So he gave this up to his dad. He's like, hey, let's buy the UFC, and he passed on it. Look where they are now. Yeah. And then episode 6, called The Finish, talks about WrestleMania in 2007 with Donald Trump. That's where the episode starts at. Talks about Vince's limo explosion and the funeral that was planned on Raw, but they had to pivot because it was the Chris Benoit tribute night, the night after he murdered his family.
That's pretty insane. That was planned for that week, and then Chris Benoit murders his whole family the night before. And as the show was progressing, is when they started getting details as far as what happened.
And slowly, the show was dropping the tribute. Towards the end, there was no mention of Chris Benoit at all because the news had actually come out. And then also talks a lot about CTE research. Vince McMahon's completely against it.
Doesn't believe in.
Stone Cold completely. That's gone viral today because of that. And wrestlers during the PG era. I don't know why I wrote that. The PG era. This is kind of where everything went from being raunchy to a more kid-friendly, bring in the younger audience. The women's revolution that happened just a few years ago, and talks a lot about Shane going crazy with the stunts. That's the first part of the episode. Then the second part of the last episode talks all about Vince's sexual payoff allegations.
That happened this year.
That happened. 2021 is where this first started. He ends up resigning as a CEO, but staying on as creative at WWE at the time. He actually showed up after this leaked in 2021. He showed up on Raw like the next week as his character, Mr. McMahon, and just getting the rise out of the crowd because he is defending himself the whole time, saying this is not true, consensual, blah 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 blah. He inevitably retires, quote unquote, but then ends up returning to the Titan board. Comes back in a coup and takes over in 2023 to prepare for a sale eventually that would happen when they sell it to UFC and Endeavor and make TKO. Pisses off Stephanie. Stephanie resigns because she was running the company after he left initially leaving. And the UFC merger, talk about that a lot. And then more crazy allegations come out January of this year, and Vince has to give up his stake in the new TKO company. He was the CEO or something of the new company. He had to give that up, sell all of his stock, so he has no part of the company at all anymore. Talks a lot about that, but this is all stuff we already knew. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of revelations as far as stuff that we didn't know. A lot of funny moments, and like I said, there's people in this documentary. You don't see the amount of wrestlers, the amount of people that were connected to this big, huge 30-year timeline. You don't see that. You see it in some of the documentary stuff, but a lot of these people are not connected to WWE at all anymore. And like you mentioned, Meltzer being a part of it too. He's not going to be in any WWE product ever. So overall, I liked it a lot, but I really hope there's an episode 7 because I think this only
King.
this only touched the surface of stuff. Like, this is all stuff we want to know, but where's the stuff that we know there's secrets in the closet there? And from the rumors that I've been hearing since this came out, this only touches the surface, and more stuff's going to come out with more wrestlers too. So maybe if they ever do a season 2 or another spin-off of this, maybe it'll tackle that. I'm not sure. Overall, I did like it, though. If you don't know anything about wrestling...
Yeah.
If you don't know anything about wrestling and you want to know the history of how it became so popular, and it's a lot more about that rather than the allegation stuff, which the last episode tackled, but it's more about the history of WWF and going into WWE and how they had to change their name and everything. Tackles everything. Does a great job at that. Does a great timeline of telling how these big, huge superstars like Stone Cold and The Rock, how they became household names. How Hulk Hogan became a household name. Does a great job at that. Overall, it's great. I recommend it. It's on Netflix. 6 hours, 6 episodes, hour long, but very good, very, very good. With that being said, let's get into the news. And it's not a news segment with a trailer roundup. Got some great trailers this week we're going to talk about. First one is Thunderbolts, which I've already seen. This leaked at Comic-Con last month, a couple months ago. We got the Thunderbolts poster, recreated with a lot of other posters in mind, like the ones on the right there. Overall, the characters, I think this is gonna be kind of like a Suicide Squad of the MCU. Pretty much,
basically.
That's what it looks like. But I do like her. What's her name? That's playing the lead in this. I like Bucky, of course. I can't wait to see what they do with the Sentry. I don't know how they're gonna do it. I know the Pullman kid is playing the Sentry, Bob. I don't know what they're gonna do. He's obviously the MCU version of Superman, with a weird, twisted fate to him. So we'll see how this goes. I love David Harbour too. He's a part of the cast, so I'm excited for that. Scarlett Johansson is back in the business with MCU. She's executive producer on this as well. So yeah. Got a brand new trailer, full trailer for Gladiator 2. I thought this looked great. Cast looks great. Paul Mescal playing the lead. Pedro is in it. Connie Nielsen, Denzel, kid who's playing Human Torch and the Fantastic Four is in it. Great cast, directed by Ridley Scott again. We're going to be watching the first one when this comes out in November. We're going to be watching the first one again, so excited for that. Brand new trailer for Red 1. Coming out on Netflix, I believe, sometime after this, maybe December. Comes out in theaters on November 15th, though, starring The Rock, Chris Evans as a kind of a detective, private investigator. It also stars J.K. Simmons and Lucy Liu. Of course, set in the holiday season where Santa Claus has been kidnapped, and The Rock, who is kind of Santa Claus's security, has to hire a private detective to find him, and that ends up being Chris Evans. Looks good. Looks like a standard holiday movie with a little bit of action because it's The Rock, pretty much. But it does look decent. Got a new trailer, brand new movie. We know a little bit of history about this, called Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, of course, from Black Panther and Creed, bringing in Michael B. Jordan as a star. We don't know anything about the actual plot of the movie. We know it's some sort of a monster movie, some sort of the rumor being a vampire movie. Trailer didn't give too much about it. This comes out on March 7th. It did look really good. Michael B. Jordan's awesome, so and we love Ryan Coogler, so we'll talk about that when it comes out. Brand new trailer came out today for John Wick Ballerina, starring Ana de Armas. John Wick himself, Keanu is in it as well. All the stars of the original John Wick series are in this. You see Lance, what's his name, who passed away this year? Lance Reddick.
Michael Miche, yeah.
Yeah, he's in it. Everybody you know from that movie is in it.
And so John Wick. And
John, it does look good. It's a pretty cool set somewhere in the timeline of John Wick. Brand new full trailer for Shrinking TV show coming out next month. I am excited for this. The trailer was funny as hell. First season, we were both high on it. We loved it. I think you loved it more than Ted Lasso, so that was a big praise for you. So we're excited for that. Of course, Harrison Ford is the star of that with Jason Segel. So we'll talk about that. Big trailer this week was The Last of Us Season 2. Pedro coming back, of course. Ramsey, what's her name, coming back. And who's that new character in the middle? Who's that new character?
I'm blanking on her name right now.
I can't remember her name. She's a big part of the show.
That's going to piss everyone off.
Yep, she's the one that's going to be making the world go crazy. So the trailer looked great. Cannot wait for that first season. We were high on that too. So weekend box office. Beetlejuice won again for $26 million. Transformers won $25 million. Close call. And Speak No Evil, the movie with what's his name? That was Professor Xavier in there. James McAvoy was number 3 with $5.9 million. Beetlejuice crossed over $329 million in the global box office. It's doing big numbers in the theaters. Agatha All Along hit 9.3 million viewers in the first week on Disney+. The Penguin opened to 5.3 million viewers across all platforms in the first 4 days, making it the biggest show I think, not in history, but I think it was bigger than House of Dragon, if I remember correctly.
Than everything but House. I think it was bigger. It was bigger than Succession season 4. It was bigger than I think House of the Dragon might be the only one that was bigger than it, but I can't remember what the actual context is.
It was Game of,
yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the viral campaign for Penguin has been great. This is a flyer for Buddy's Grocery, was a part of the first episode, and the Slush Puppy ad in the bottom just got me. That was the best part of that episode. I loved it. We'll talk about that next week because the new episode airs on Sunday. We'll talk about episode 2 next week. Rest in peace to Dame Maggie Smith. If you've watched Harry Potter, you know her as Professor McGonagall. She passed away today at the age of 89. Born in 1934. Great actress, of course. If you love Harry Potter, iconic as McGonagall. She had a great repertoire with all the kids on the show. She was a teacher in that. It's just fantastic actress. She was in Downton Abbey later in life in the last few years. She's been an actor and a British actor for years, and she's a dame. She's not knighted, but whatever they call that for women in England. That's what she ended up becoming. But rest in peace to her. I wanted to bring up this movie I have not seen. Keep hearing great things about it. Starring Aubrey Plaza. My Old Ass is getting rave reviews. I don't know anything about it. I just keep hearing how great it is. Came out this week. But it's something we need to keep on our radar because it's rated R. It has a good kind of weird Freaky Friday type story where I believe she plays herself as an older person that's coming from the future or something. We need to keep an eye on this movie. From what I hear is good. Martin Scorsese, he was going to be doing a Frank Sinatra biopic and a Life of Jesus movie. Both of those have been postponed and new filming dates are unclear at the moment, but sometime going to be filming probably next year. They're going to be filming this year, but he's postponed them. So, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with Martin. But October monthly games. I wanted to bring this up to you because WWE 2K24.
Ooh, nice.
Is going to be free. I don't know if you owned it digitally or not.
23. That's good.
Yep. Yeah, going to be free if you're a member of PlayStation Plus, which I am, and I know you are too. So, that's cool. It'll come out on October 1st. Speaking of video games, we got new renders of the Switch 2. Bigger screen, as you can see on the far right corner, and the Joy-Con controllers are going to be magnetic rather than sliding in. They're going to be magnetically connected to the Switch itself.
Oh, good.
Because it's a pain in the ass to slide them in there. I know on the Switch that we have now, the first generation. But we're going to be getting news on that coming soon, so we'll have to wait and see. This week, Disney Plus launched their password sharing crackdown. $6.99 per person, or actually only one additional. So if you're sharing your account with somebody, you have to pay $6.99 out of house for that person to keep continuing watching, or they have the option to start their own Disney Plus account. If you're a premium Disney Plus member, that goes up to $9.99 a month because you get Disney Plus, Hulu, so on and so forth. But David Diggs, who's in Hamilton, he played Jefferson, he played Lafayette. He joined the cast of The Boys Season 5, the final season of The Boys. I did love him in Hamilton. He's been in a lot of things, too, since then. But Hamilton, of course, I love Hamilton. So I love The Boys, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Dumbledore, who was played by Richard Harris in the first movie, he passed away after 2 movies. His son is a popular actor, too. He's been in a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows. Jared Harris. And when asked if he would play Dumbledore in the reboot that they're doing on HBO, he said, I mean, why do it? I don't understand. The films were fantastic. Leave them alone. I think a lot of people think that too, but I'm actually excited to see the films being retouched, redone, because
there's a lot they left out, right? There's a lot,
a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
there's a whole character that's in the books. Not a huge character. His name's Peeves. He's a ghost. He's a poltergeist in the school of Hogwarts. He was cut out by Chris Columbus in the first 2 movies. But he's a huge part of the books. Not huge like character, but just he's in it throughout. But yeah, I think he'll probably be a part of the TV show. And by the time we get to the last book, it was broke up into 2 movies for a reason, because the book was huge. So there's a lot of story there that wasn't told in the movie, but for the most part, the movie got the basic gist of the movies, of the books, I mean. But Margot Robbie and Jacob Ellery are going to star in a new movie, Wuthering Heights. I believe it's based off a book. I've heard of it before, but I don't know anything about it. But yeah, that came out this week. Of course, we love Jacob Ellery from Euphoria, and Margot Robbie. Of course, she's great as Harley Quinn. So we'll see about that. Freddie Prinze Jr. is going to be reprising his role in I Know What You Did Last Summer, the sequel film coming out next year. Yeah. I've never watched that. We're going to be watching that before that movie comes out, so we'll talk about that later. Brand new still from Skeleton Crew, the new Star Wars show coming out with Jude Law front and center as the Rogue Jedi. Well, we're not sure much about the show other than that first trailer that we saw looked pretty good. We'll talk about that upcoming soon. Cal Kestis, so we talk about he's in the video games Jedi Survivor, Jedi whatever, from the new generation of Star Wars games. Talking about why isn't he in the live action movies, TV shows, whatever. Why isn't he in that? Well, reportedly he will be making his live action debut sometime in a Disney Plus project of Star Wars in the upcoming future sometime. Of course, played by Monahan. I can't remember his first name, but he was in Shameless. He was a Joker in Gotham. But he did the voice and the likeness in the video game was based off of him. So, yeah. Already talked about Francis Ford Coppola. The movie is only estimated to be making $5 to $7 million this weekend on a $120 million budget from Francis Ford Coppola's own pocket. Not good. Yeah. People don't know what this movie's about, and that's the problem. I know he's kind of against that. I know he's like, yeah, who cares? The movie's good, just watch it. But yeah, it could be, but I'd rather see it at home, to be honest with you. Speaking of movies that are going right straight to digital, Hellboy the Crooked Man, which we have no idea why this movie is being made and why they haven't done a sequel to the one with Ron Perlman, which we've been talking about for fucking years. But rumored to be going straight to digital platforms sometime in October. So yeah, that's the only thing I know about this movie. It was directed by the guy who wrote the comic book. He came in first time director and directed the whole entire thing. But it's Diddy news all the time on the internet now. Diddy everywhere. Mm-hmm. P. Diddy, of course, arrested in jail now with his thousands of bottles of lube and hundreds of dildos. 50 Cent is producing, who has been on Diddy's. He has been on Diddy for years. So it's no surprise that he's producing this documentary that's going to be coming out on Netflix. Already done a lot of interviews for it. Already done a lot of tracking for it. It will focus on all the sex charges, trafficking, racketeering, the assault, the victim abuse allegations, all of that. It's already in production. I don't know when this is going to come out. I'm guessing by the beginning of next year, middle of next year. But yeah, P. Diddy, if he survives, we're not sure. We're on a P. Diddy watch right now. He's probably in a high security in jail, but a lot of shitty shit happening there. But RoboCop officially going to be another TV series. It works on Prime Video. Prime, when they bought MGM, when Amazon bought MGM, this is one of the properties that they bought, including Bond. But RoboCop TV, they're going to try to milk that as much as they can. Of course, Peter Weller played the first RoboCop. They did a remake with Joel Kinnaman, right? Whatever his name is.
Yep. Which wasn't bad. Yeah. It just wasn't what the original was. I think the reboot was PG-13. You need an R-rated RoboCop to work. That
makes sense. I like the director's cut of the original RoboCop too, because they showed a lot more blood and gore. I remember. But yeah, Tim Roth has been cast in Peaky Blinders movie. A lot of cool, good actors being cast in this. Barry Coogan, of course, Killian. I gotta finish this series. I keep saying that. I gotta add it to my list of stuff to watch the last season. But yeah, Peaky Blinders. If you've never seen it, it's on Netflix. You can watch all the seasons. It's really good. Came out today that Maxwell Jacob Freeman, MJF from Wrestling Fans, is going to be cast in Happy Gilmore 2, along with Bad Bunny, Travis Kelce, all the original actors from the first movie with Adam Sandler, of course, Happy Gilmore 1 that came out in the 90s. But yeah, we love Maxwell Jacob. We loved him way before wrestling, like way before AEW. We loved him in Limitless, so we were on that bandwagon a few years before that. Stephen Graham, I've seen him. I wanted to know if you recognize him, but he was cast in the Bruce Springsteen movie as Bruce Springsteen's dad. opposite Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen. I don't know what
nice.
I've seen him in, but I've seen him in something. He looks familiar. I just can't think.
Yeah,
of
he does.
But yeah, he was cast today. Nobody 2 wrapped filming this week. Going to be in theaters next summer. We love the first movie with Bob Odenkirk, so we're excited for that. 4:30 movie came out in theaters last week. Going to be on digital on Tuesday, October 1st. Just in a few days. Kevin Smith's new movie, 4:30 movie, which is getting rave reviews. People are saying it's one of his best movies in recent memory. It's an up-and-coming 80s up-and-coming movie, kind of like Stand By Me, but talks about all about like a young coming-of-age story of being a young kid in New Jersey and sneaking into movie theaters. So, sounds really cool. And he said the sequel to this movie will be a prequel to him right before he becomes a director, too. So, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I'm excited to see that. Also coming out on Tuesday. Confirmed. We'll get into it in a minute, but we'll talk about it in a minute. Coming out the week, or a couple weeks after that, Alien Romulus, which we just did an Alien watch a couple weeks ago, coming out on October 15th on digital, Blu-ray on December 3rd, but a movie I'm excited for. We're going to be watching that come October 15th, probably the week after we'll catch it, but very excited to be talking about Alien Romulus. We'll be talking all about that. Alan Tudyk, already a member of the cast of Creature Commandos, has a second role, an unknown role, undisclosed role, but he has been cast in the Superman movie, James Gunn's Superman movie. We don't know who he's playing.
I assume. I mean, at first, my first thought was Superman's dad, Jor-El, but I assume he'll just be Dr. Phosphorus, because James said that nobody's going to be playing more than one role, so I assume he would just be playing Dr. Phosphorus, maybe doing a voice, or he could be the voice of Jor-El. I don't know. Because it's weird that he would have been cast after they filmed, so he'll be doing a voice of some kind, is my guess.
Yeah, that could be the case. He's a great voice actor. So, casting for Supergirl. This guy is going to be playing opposite of Millie Alcock. He's going to be playing the villain of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, film coming out in 2026. I forgot who he was playing. Who is he in the comic book again?
I'm thinking it's going to be Krem.
I couldn't remember his name, but he's the bad guy in the comic book who, of course, he goes across galaxy to try to help this girl that she follows in the comic book. So if they're doing a book to screen adaptation, that's who he could be playing. So, excited for that. And the big news, which you hinted to earlier, Kyle Chandler has been cast as Hal Jordan in DC's Lantern series.
Big controversy.
We just talked about Friday Night Lights, the star of Friday Night Lights, the TV show. Timing perfect for the podcast. Thank you, DC Studios.
Yeah.
Kyle Chandler, what are your thoughts on this?
He is my second favorite TV dad of all time, behind Mr. Matthews. He is a very good actor. He was on that show, was it Bloodlines for Netflix? And he won a few Emmys, I believe, or was nominated a bunch for that. He's a fantastic actor. I do have an issue with the age of Hal Jordan, but again, I mean, the actor is almost 60, but Hal Jordan could still be early 50s because they can age you down. It's pretty easy to do. It's a weird choice, but he is an excellent actor, so we'll just have to see and see if James Gunn will ever actually confirm it. Maybe he's waiting for the Jon Stewart news to confirm who's going to actually be in this. So
speaking of that,
yes.
Speaking of that, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when we watched Rebel Ridge, but the two front runners to play Jon Stewart in DC's Lantern series, Aaron Pierre, the guy on the left is star of Rebel Ridge, and the guy on the left, the right, I don't know, Stephen James. Do you know what he was in?
He's in something. I think it's on Prime. I haven't seen it, but it's getting rave reviews. So
okay. But yeah, that's who the front runners are. I believe, to me, an outsider. I haven't watched a lot of Green Lantern besides the original movie with Ryan Reynolds, but Kyle Chandler is going to be the older, grizzled detective who is going to be working with whoever is going to be the Jon Stewart character.
Yes.
So Hal Jordan is not going to be the future of the series.
Correct.
Whoever this character is going to be whoever they cast as Jon Stewart is going to be the character going forward. If they ever make
Yes.
movies, they ever go into this series continues into later seasons, which could happen.
Yep.
It'll be focused more on the Jon Stewart character, which has not really
And
happened in
probably
movies.
Kyle Rayner also. I would assume they would bring him eventually.
Yeah.
But out of these
Guy
two choices,
Gardner was in the Superman movie, of course.
yep, Guy Gardner, of course. I could see him dying in Superman. But out of these two guys, I could see Aaron really playing off the older guy like he did in Rebel Ridge. The older authoritative guy, because Jon Stewart, from my knowledge, which isn't that huge, I actually just got a Green Lantern comic to read to get ready for this. But he's kind of like not a bad guy, but he's kind of like a street guy. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not like he's kind of a punk, I guess you could say. And then eventually earns the right to wear the ring. So I could see him going against the authoritative Kyle Chandler in that role. And Kyle Chandler's probably going to either die or turn into Parallax. I assume they're doing Parallax with it. Not too sure, though. But, yeah, we'll have to see.
Yep. Came out today. Lady Gaga is currently promoting the Joker 2 movie that comes out in a couple weeks. Next week, actually. She came out with a new album today, inspired by her time as Harley Quinn in the movie called Harley Quinn. And she ended up coming out with the back of the album cover, which is a list of the songs that she's going to be covering for the movie. Some familiar ones in there. She has a new song called The Joker she made especially for this. But yeah, I don't know. From what I heard, I actually got a spoiler today. I don't know if you read it too about this movie, but
I know about the ending.
Yeah. You know about the ending? Do you want to get into it now? Spoiler alert?
No, we'll get it.
We'll wait till it comes out.
I'll talk to you briefly after we get off the air, but yeah.
Yeah, I read it today too, because I was like, what the fuck? I have my thoughts. We'll get into it when the movie comes out, maybe once we see it, but yeah, we'll talk about it later. Karen Rodriguez has been cast in the Spider-Man Noir series coming out on Amazon Prime. Don't know what she's been in, but yeah, they're still casting for that. MCU news. Sony and Disney have agreed to a new deal, supposedly. Tom Holland will reprise his role for Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6 in the new trilogy. Have a role in Secret Wars, and have two unannounced Marvel movies he's going to be appearing in. And his appearance in Avengers Doomsday is going to be part of the original deal of 2019, where he was going to be doing No Way Home and have one appearance in an MCU movie, and this is going to be Doomsday. So yeah, this is a big rumor. Don't know more about that. I'm hoping sometime in the next few months we'll learn more about that. Something will come out, because nothing was announced at Comic-Cons or anything. Sony and Marvel have been keeping their mouth shut about it. And some big changes supposedly happened with that deal as well. Sony will now start notifying Marvel Studios about which villains they're going to be using in their non-MCU projects. And after they've been on screen, they have to wait at least 30 days after Sony's movie has been released on demand or digital to be able to use that character again. Meaning that when the Kraven the Hunter movie comes out, it could be brought technically into the MCU. Whether they bring in Aaron Taylor Johnson or not, could be brought in 30 days after it's already put on iTunes, Vudu, whatever. But yeah, they also have a new rule to abide by, that their budgets have to be at least $75 million and play to a minimum of 2,000 U.S. theaters. In other words, they can't make a low-budget Spider-Man movie. They have to make something that's going to be successful. That they want the budget to be big enough where they can make their investment and make it look like a good movie rather than having a shitty looking superhero movie at a lower budget. But understandably, these are supposedly new parts of the deal. But Bo DeMeo, we talk about in X-Men 97 first season, did a great job with that. Got fired quickly because of his sexual stuff he was doing behind the scenes on OnlyFans. But talks about that he had original ideas, which Marvel pulled the plug on, for Onslaught and the Age of Apocalypse adaptation in the second and third seasons. For some reason, Marvel scrapped those ideas. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing going forward because he's not a part of the second and third season anymore. But I didn't really like the first season of X-Men '97, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So we'll get into that. Disney will be campaigning for Deadpool and Wolverine in the awards season, considering Best Actor for Ryan Reynolds and Best Supporting Actor for Hugh Jackman. They're going all out for it. Who knows? But and finally in news, yes, it was the final thing I had on here. Deadpool and Wolverine coming out on digital on Tuesday. Finally, we got new box cover art of the DVD 4K releases, Blu-ray releases. Of course, Deadpool Wolverine front and center looks cool, but digital is where it's at. I'm going to be getting that on Tuesday, of course, and we're going to be probably talking about it again next week if I have a chance to watch it. But and I want to watch the 4:30 movie too. But that is it for news. That's it for our show this week. Next week, beginning of October, we got a show and tell. Got a good one coming up. Only Murders in the Building Season 6. Talk about that. We'll talk about the finale of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Comes out on Thursday. Agatha All Along, the 4th episode. Penguin season episode 2 comes out on Sunday. We'll talk about that next week. Wolves, the show starring Brad Pitt and George Clooney, came out on Apple TV today. We're going to, hopefully I'll watch that soon, and we'll talk about it either next week or the week after, depending on what we have time for. Like I mentioned, 4:30 movie Deadpool and Wolverine come out on Tuesday on digital. We're going to be watching the Joker movie by Todd Phillips. I don't know if we're going to watch Joker 2, probably when it comes out on streaming, but I think this weekend I'm going to watch the first Joker movie and give it a pineapple rating, because I don't think I ever did rate it. But the big movie, quote unquote, next week is Our Road to the Crow. 2000's Crow Salvation.
Yep.
Not a lot on the docket. We're digging in the bottom of the barrel for this one.
We'll watch Don't Breathe as the first October movie also.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll do that. So Don't Breathe. You can add that to the list. Month of October. We got The Crow Wicked Prayer and then The Crow Remake. The only 2 movies left on the docket. So by the middle of October, we'll get into The Crow with Skarsgård, one that just came out. We're going to be reviewing 2 comic book movies. Because of The Crow, this watch we're going to be doing, we're going to be reviewing the comic book for The Crow, but we're also going to be reviewing The Long Halloween. That's going to be the comic books we're going to be reviewing this season. Also, Long Halloween, the animated movie, $4.99 currently on iTunes if you've never seen it, and you want to listen along to us. We're going to be watching that, or I'm going to be watching it for the first time, and we're going to talk about that after I read the comic book. We got some Halloween movies. We're going to be starting with Don't Breathe next week. We've got Maxine, The Conjuring, Friday the 13th Part 6, and one of the Saw movies.
Potentially Saw, sure. Yeah, we'll see.
We're not sure. Also, getting ready for Venom, The Last Dance. Going to be watching for the podcast Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage. I'm going to be rewatching those. The Warriors, there's a new Lin-Manuel Miranda soundtrack coming out. May watch that, may not, we'll see. I do want to see that movie, the original movie, so we'll see. As far as what's coming out next month, on the 3rd, next week, Salem's Lot remake coming out on Max. On the 4th, The Joker, Folie à Deux, next weekend. On the 7th, Superman and Lois, the final season comes out.
Yep, can't wait.
On the 11th, Saturday Night, the Saturday Night Live movie. The Apprentice, the Donald Trump movie. Mr. Crockett, the horror / Mr. Rogers movie I talked about last week. Terrifier 3 and Alien Romulus all come out on the 11th on digital. Alien Romulus comes out on digital. October 15th, the 25th anniversary of Fight Club. I didn't tell you about this, Kevin, but we're going to be doing a Fight Club watch next month on the 15th. 25th anniversary of Fight Club. I know one of your favorite movies. I want to talk about the book. I want to talk about Fight Club, the casting, your thoughts on the movie, my thoughts on the movie. I haven't seen it in 25 years, so excited for that. 16th, Striking Season 2. Excited for that. Prime Brothers. I don't remember what this is about. Comes out on the 17th. Oh, that's the one with Peter Dinklage. And,
yes, the Dink.
Yeah.
And Josh Brolin, was it? Yeah.
Yep. On the 18th, Woman of the Hour, directed by Anna Kendrick. Smile 2. The Office in Australia, Office comes out on Prime that day on the 18th. Wolfman comes out on the 25th. And Venom Last Dance comes out on the 25th as well. So we get a big stacked October. November is going to be the same way, December too, once we get into the Christmas season. So, and we're going to talk about hockey movies in November. So we got a lot of stuff on the docket. So thank you, everyone. And we will talk to you next week.
Deuces.
We're the Geek Blurb crew, here to enlighten you. Talking all things geeky, from movies to wrestling to our podcast is the place where you wanna be for all the latest news and nostalgia from the 80s and 90s. We review comic book flicks and sci-fi hits, riding the wave of action movies with all the cool bits. From Iron Man to Star Wars, we cover it all. And when it comes to wrestling, we never drop the ball. Geek Blurb, we're the kings of the nerds, rating movies and pineapples, our opinions never blurred. Join us each week for a geeky chat with the latest news and a dose of nostalgia that. So if you're a fan of the comic book craze, or a lover of sci-fi and all its maze, tune in to Geek Blurb, we're here